right, so we're going to get started. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Visual Sound's webinar on STEMFuse. And this is specifically about using STEMFuse to teach remotely when you have your students at home, when you're in the classroom, and then how you could also bring it back into your classroom when you return. So this is a really great curriculum tool, and we're very excited to have Tyler Tachi from STEMFuse with us today so that he can talk about some of the things that they're doing at STEMFuse to help teachers through this interesting time that we're all kind of going through. So I'm going to start right now by introducing myself. My name is Corey Freed. I am the educational consultant and training specialist here at Visual Sound. I have a lot of different titles, as you can see, so I'm not going to go through all of them, but just know that whatever your school is using, we can assist you in helping your teachers to reach the best potential, because we all know that when the teachers feel prepared and comfortable, then they're going to be better equipped to help the students. And in the long run, that's the goal of education, is to work with the students and help the students grow. So as I said, part of what we're talking about is blended learning. And what blended learning is, it's kind of that combination of the old school and the new school. So for years, you've been in the physical classroom. You may be working in small groups, you may be working independently, but you're all physically in the same space. And what's going on right now is a lot of schools are transitioning to a hybrid or a 100% online model. So how exactly does that look for your teachers? How does that look for your students? And how does that look for the curriculums that do require a lot of that hands-on, interactive, tactile experiences? So that's what we kind of want to talk about today, is that how are we going to help our students reach their full potential when we're not physically in the same space as them? And that's one of the greatest things about STEMFuse, is it is designed with the type of equipment that the kids are going to have at home. So when they have their computers and the teacher's using something like Zoom to work with them, the students will still be able to participate in all of these problem-based learning activities and a lot of different other exciting things. So I am going to pass the screen sharing on to Tyler, and he is going to talk specifically about STEMFuse and what exactly it is. And then I'll come back at the end to talk about some of the professional development offerings that we have, and also some of the other interesting things we have going on here at Visual Sound. So Tyler, you are up to share your screen.
Fantastic. I'm going to grab it from you. Corey, are you able to see my screen now?
I can see your screen, yes.
Great. Good morning, everybody. So as Corey mentioned, my goal here over the next 45 minutes or so is just to walk you through how STEMFuse is helping schools prepare for distance or blended learning, really K through 12. So just a quick introduction to myself. I'm the National Sales Director here for STEMFuse. Been with the company for almost 10 years now. STEMFuse as a company, our goal is to create digital, easy to use, engaging STEM and CTE curriculum that'll help teachers of any subject, or combine with CTE curriculum, prepare students for various types of post-secondary opportunities. So I want to start today by introducing you to our product line, and then we're going to dive into our digital platform and explore some lesson plans for a variety of different grade levels and a variety of different subjects to give you a good understanding of how STEMFuse and our curriculum can help your students within any grade level and within any subject. So what we're starting with today is just our course catalog, and I'm going to go through this quickly today, but my goal here is just to get you to understand all of the different programs that we provide. So being that we're a STEM-focused curriculum company as well as CTE pathways, you're going to notice a wide variety here of different areas that we can help your buildings. The first we're going to start with here is just our agriculture pathway. This would be a full CTE pathway, meaning 3 semester-long courses progressing in difficulty. We're seeing agriculture being one of those programs out there across the country that is very difficult to teach in a distance learning environment for obvious reasons. So our program here around agriculture has been very popular in helping those CTE teachers teaching various agriculture areas be able to bring agriculture into a distance learning environment. The next section, or the next product line that we provide, is what we call our STEM STEAM integration product line. And this is what we're going to be focusing on a majority of today's presentation when we actually get into the demonstration of the platform and the lesson plans. And that's our Stemette series. The Stemette series is K through 12. We're going to see Stemette Elementary today, Stemette Middle School, and then on the next page here, Stemette High School. And what these programs provide is a library of digitally interactive and as well as hands-on learning opportunities that are tied to all subject areas K through 12 and help teachers not only tie in those core subject standards, but also bring in some truly authentic learning experiences through STEM. So it's simply STEM integration, bringing STEM into different classrooms. We would then have a robotics and circuitry component tied to those same Stemette programs. So just another unit here to introduce various areas around robotics and circuitry, K through 12. And then we get into our IT or computer science CTE pathway, which we start with a Stemette Elementary curriculum tied to the CSTA standards. So helping your teachers introduce students to those computer science standards at the K-5 level, and then simply progressing that and building on that as we get into the middle school and high school level, eventually tying to a variety of industry certifications, accreditation opportunities across the country, as well as tying to industry standards and building industry skill sets. So it's a very wide-ranging pathway in our IT and computer science area. A lot of game design, application development, website designs included in there, as well as software design. So it's a very introductory, as well as we can get as advanced as we want, or as industry prep as we want to get with our higher level courses. So with that being said, I'm going to jump now into our platform. And the first thing I want to start with, and I'm going to go back to our home screen here, is just a quick introduction to what you're seeing on your screen. So I'm going to assume most of you have not spent time yet with our platform. And what I want to do today is just give you a quick introduction to what you're seeing here and how the functionality that we've added in to this platform is perfect for your teachers as they move into a distance or blended learning environment. So what you're seeing on my screen here is our welcome screen, what we're calling our teacher dashboard. This is where your teachers would log in and they're able to access all of their STEMFuse content directly from this platform. Without going too in the weeds with you today, I just want to touch on some of the functionality here that is available to your staff, and then we're going to jump into some lesson plans. But as part of this dashboard, the goal here is to make this very simple for your teachers to manage your students. So you're able to, as a teacher, you're able to add students to your classes. You're able to manage or track where your students are at within different lesson plans. You're able to assign deadlines to assignments. Students are able to submit assignments directly through the platform. You're even able to grade assignments through the platform and pull any grading reports you need to connect it to your existing gradebook. A lot of our courses will have end of unit assessments. Those assessments are very similar to the assignments. As teachers, you can take those assessments and assign a start date and an end date to limit any student cheating and to make sure the students are on track within the units that they need to be tested on. Our assessment tool will also self-grade these end of unit assessments for you as the teacher, providing you back then with class and student reports and remediation techniques to go back and find weaknesses in your students' learning with guidelines to help you hit those areas that are weak. So when we're talking about coming back to school this year compared to any other year in the past, we're going to notice a huge learning gap in our students. They're going to be at different levels simply because of where we left them off last year. So using our assessment tools, and especially when we get into our CTE, real semester-long courses, that's going to be very helpful for your teachers to get a quick understanding of where your students are at. So we have assignments and assessment tools here built in, as well as student tracking and connection. One other thing I want to mention is that this is available on any device with internet connection. So I know a majority of you are going to provide technology out to your students in some way or another, whether that's tablets or laptops. This will be able to support that learning and help the students use those devices and connect to these lesson plans. So with that being said, I'm going to dive in here to a few of those different lessons. And today we're just going to focus on the Stemette areas, those cross-curricular K through 12 lesson plans designed to be used in a distance or blended learning environment. But you're going to notice that we have access or the ability here, and all of you will after today's call as well, have access to a variety of our different courses to review and play around with. So I'm going to go and start with here, just elementary. We're going to go in order of grade level. elementary, middle school, and high school. So we're going to start with our Stemette Elementary program. Stemette Elementary is broken down into grade levels K through 2 and 3 through 5. So what I'm going to do today is just go into this start unit and show you how, using a few of our teacher's guides here, you're able to plan for different lesson plans using the core subjects taught in K through 2 and 3 through 5. So I'm going to go to start unit, and I'm going to pull up our topic guide as we get started today. So by using this topic guide as it pulls up for me, and I'm just going to collapse this left sidebar here. So using this topic guide, what this is going to show me now is how these different lesson plans are broken down into grade levels. So we saw K through 2, we saw the units 3 through 5 on the previous screen. Inside each of those grade levels, we have the 4 core subjects. So we have English, science, math, and social studies, meaning we have projects now for those subject areas that are tied to those subject standards. As we continue through this topic guide, we're then able to see those standard areas and where we can bring this Stemette Elementary program into our existing curriculum. So English, for example, K through 2, your teachers are teaching prepositions, autobiographies, and poetry. This will be recognized by them. They will have to have some lesson plans around these areas as part of their distance or blended learning curriculum. So what we're providing then is ways to bring some hands-on or unplugged learning into the existing curriculum, meaning they will not need technology for some of these lesson plans, which they can be doing completely on their home, or at their home, excuse me, without the need of that technology, as well as a lot of virtual or digital lesson plans that they can be doing on those devices that you're providing to them. So we're going to touch on the difference here between how you can help students, whether or not they have technology, and what that learning would look like and how it ties into prepositions today. As we continue through the rest of these subject areas, we're going to notice a very similar outline, and I'm not going to touch on what all of these different areas mean. I'm going to show you that later. But you're going to notice a variety of different lesson plans, but they're all outlined very consistently. So by that I mean prepositions, we see a Stemette challenge, we see code at 3D printing. With mathematics, same idea, same outline. We have a Stemette challenge here, coding, 3D printing. And the topic is obviously different, right? We're in mathematics, numbers, and counting here. So we're going to use very similar STEM projects to reinforce the core subject in a very consistent manner, making it very easy for teachers and students to pick this up quickly. As we scroll through and get into grades 3 through 5, you're going to notice the same exact outline, those same 4 core subjects. The only difference here being the standards that we're tying these STEM projects and technology and unplugged projects into. So English transitions away from prepositions, as we saw at the kindergarten level, to elements of a story, cause and effect, and then parts of speech. Mathematics, same thing, just transitioning into grades 3 through 5 in standard aligned topic areas relating to math, science, and social studies. So as we saw that topic guide and we see grades K through 2, we see grades 3 through 5 here on the left side. We're able to navigate into subjects using the left side now. So for example, grades K through 2, we wanted to explore prepositions for today's first example. So if we went into grades K through 2, English, selected prepositions, we can just jump right in now to the learning exercises that we have access to. So now we're within K through 2, we're within English, we're within prepositions. Now we have access to those student-facing lesson plans and some teacher-facing planning tools. So we're going to use the teacher-facing teacher's guide here to get started today. And what this is going to show us now, and I'm going to make it bigger for us again, is how to facilitate these lesson plans. So we saw the topic guide, which gives us the entire outline of the program. These teacher's guides now do a really good job of specifically helping you prepare for the lessons that are tied or within this particular topic area. So as we go into this teacher's guide now, notice how it's going to be very visual for you as a teacher. Notice how it's going to guide you through some of the different lesson plans. But we're going to dive into this challenge here in a second, and we're going to see 5 different areas of learning here for our students. We walk you through each of those areas of learning, showing you the standards that are tied to this, any possible standard you could think of, whether it's a core subject, Next Gen Science Engineering, CSTA, Computer Science, ISTE, Digital Literacy, Digital Learning. we're tied to every possible standard, whether it's STEM or core, that you could possibly imagine. So if you explore this later today or your teachers dive in and you have some questions on standards, you can contact us. Our standard team, curriculum development team, has an entire list of different standards based on different states. The rest of this teacher's guide now does a really good job of walking you through. So I'm going to go back up really quickly. We see these 5 different lesson plans here labeled for you, 1 through 5, standards that are tied to it. Now walking the teacher through what the students will be doing through each of those lesson plans. You're going to see teacher's notes. You're going to see estimated time of completion for each of those 5 individual lesson plans. So I'm going to walk you through how those lessons would work, how you could use them in a distance or a blended learning environment. So each of these is broken down, as we saw in that topic with the Stemette Challenge. We have coding projects as well, and then 3D printing projects. I'm going to quickly run you through these 3 areas, and you'll get a quick understanding of how we're able to use this to teach prepositions in this particular case. So I'm going to make my screen full. And this is that engineering challenge with those 5 different lesson plans. So the whole focus here is on teaching students prepositions. So if I was a teacher using this in a distance learning environment, I would want to begin this either if we have the opportunity to go in class for maybe a class day, maybe you're going 3 days off, 2 days in the classroom, you could lead this in front of the class or pull up your Zoom or whatever virtual meeting tool you're using, and we're going to walk through activity 1 with our students. So activity 1 is simply reviewing the core subject that we're talking about. So this one's all about prepositions. You're going to notice consistency. So we're always going to be talking about prepositions throughout all of these different projects I'm going to show you within this topic area. So if I was leading this with my students, I would say, okay, students, where are the books? And you can have your students zoom in and talk to you, or they can just sit down and type in the text. All we're trying to do here is get them to start to use some prepositions as they're identifying the different location of these objects. So try to make it as interactive as you possibly can in a digital virtual meeting or something like that, and just have the students interact with you. And as you select these different boxes, it's going to highlight them in the room. So you're going to notice a ton of interactivities included within these lesson plans, making it engaging for your students, even if you're simply leading the lesson. Next is some visualization. I'm going to go through this quickly today, but we're going to see drag and drop the dog between the trees. So once again, we're focusing here on prepositions. We want to use this platform to locate the dog, so we can joke around with our students and say, students, is this between the trees? And we can put the dog near the doghouse or in the doghouse. The students would all laugh, or they'd say no. We'd then be able to put the dog between the trees, and now we see, okay, that's correct. So we're giving the students now the visual connection to the prepositions we want them to know. There's a bunch of different examples here that I'm going to skip for the sake of time, as you get the idea of what we're trying to accomplish here in that first lesson. Lesson 2, we're going into the engineering design cycle. So now this is really where Stemette was built around. It is this activity 2 in this design process. So every single Stemette lesson, we're going to take a look at middle school and high school examples too today, will use this design cycle. So if we're able to understand as teachers that this design process is not specific to engineering, even though it's labeled the engineering design process or design cycle, this design cycle, and I'm going to walk you through it in just 1 second, but it's designed here to help solve problems. That's all it is. So we think about a variety of different subjects that we're teaching our students. They're always trying to solve different problems. What we use this design cycle for is a way to document that process. And this is extraordinary for distance or blended learning because it allows students to document their thinking process where normally they wouldn't, or you as a teacher would not be able to see that. Even in classroom learning, teachers can struggle with understanding the student's thought process. So this helps us identify those areas here. And this starts with a quick video on introducing the students to engineering. And then we go through that process. So at the K-5 level, all we want our students to understand is the 6-step process. So this would be another teacher-led lesson plan here, in which you want our students just to understand this process. So I'm going to walk through this with you quickly. Step one of this design cycle here is to define the problem. So in the next lesson plan, we're going to give our students a problem to solve. So teachers will have scenarios preloaded for you, ready to provide to your students. The students then, based on that scenario, will start with this ask. So we have to define the problem given to us in that scenario. Step two is brainstorm. You can collaborate. A lot of our tools are going to be digital, like using digital docs, so students can collaborate even if they're not in the same classroom together on different projects. But we want to brainstorm and collaborate what a potential solution might look like. Step three, planning. Based on what we're learning or based on what we thought would be a good idea in that imagined step, we're then gathering resources that we could use to create a solution. Step four, taking those resources, designing that first prototype. Step five, testing that. Does our design here solve the problem? If not, we go back to imagine, okay, what did we learn? Based on what we learned, what other materials do we need to gather? We then gather those materials once again, change the design to fit what our new solution would look like, test it again. Does it solve the problem? This time it does. Fantastic. We then present our solution to the class. This ends with a visualization or charting activity here. I'm just going to go through this quickly for us. And we're able to move on. Before we get into the engineering challenge, I'm going to show you just some unplugged activities here. So activity 3, these are resources your teachers can hand out to students that'll provide them with additional worksheets or activities for the students to complete at home. So just really quickly to touch on this, these do not need or require technology. Awesome worksheets or activities here for your teachers to simply hand out to students for days in which technology would not be available to them. Each of these K through 5 Stemette challenges, there's 32 in total, we'll have 2 of these. So as a K through 5, all subjects, total of 64 unplugged worksheets and activities for your students to do. Simply selecting the activity brings up the instruction for the teacher. This is also located in those teacher's guides that you can download and print and have the instructions in front of you as a teacher without having to go into this lesson. Giving you the instructions and simply giving you that resource allows you then to download, print, and then make these accessible through handouts to your students. So at this point in these 5 different lesson plans, we've introduced the students to digital learning through this platform. We've introduced them to prepositions through lesson 1. They've gotten their feet wet a little bit, not a lot, with that engineering design cycle. Maybe they've done some unplugged worksheets or activities. Now we want them to tie it all together. So this is where true STEM learning comes into play. And this is now how we tie STEM directly into what our students are learning in different K through 5 or really K through 12 classrooms. So now we get into this challenge, and I mentioned to you, these are preloaded scenarios for your teachers. So what we're going to do here is just start with a scenario. So once again, if I'm a teacher, I want to get this scenario in front of my students in a virtual environment. So I'm going to present this scenario to them. And then the rest of the week, or maybe check in every couple days, my students will be working on this project. They will not really need a lot of time on technology or virtual meetings for this particular lesson plan, as they can lead this lesson on their own once we position this scenario to them. And even our younger students are able to grasp this. So in this case, I'm just going to read the text here on the left hand of our screen. A group of passengers are stuck on an island and they need your students' help. What we're trying to do here is build a boat that can carry as much weight as possible and keep our passengers above the water, getting the passengers off of the island. So using a variety of different prepositions, we can use in, under, below, as we test and present our designs. So the next part of this is going to show us now those same 6 steps that we just introduced our students to. And I'm going to jump out. Actually, I'm just going to go through this and then show you what these digital journals look like for that the students will be filling out throughout this process. So as our students complete each step, I'll pull up the journal here once we're done and show you what that would look like. But the students are documenting their process during each of these 6 steps, writing down what they're accomplishing, and we have pre-made digital and as well as handout journals for them to complete. So ask, we know that the problem is our passengers are stuck on the island. We're going to give our students some things to think about as they plan and prepare for a potential solution. So these 6 steps here are simply introducing the students to what they're supposed to be doing within each of these 6 steps. We're not going to be guiding them toward a solution. We're not going to be saying this is what your solution needs to look like. They're going to be leading that creative process, but we're giving them things to think about that can help them lead their own learning here, which is very important for you as teachers during this time, is to make sure you have lesson plans that you don't need to constantly be with your students and helping your students or holding their hands throughout that, as it's not as easy as it used to be in the classroom to complete that type of learning. So we're getting our students to understand what they're doing during these 6 steps and then eventually presenting their designs. So we want them to find some materials that they can use to design their boat. What types of designs would work best to provide that or to create that boat? Gather those materials, design your boat, test your boat. Does your boat hold weight? We can use pennies. We can use a variety of different things to test if our little boat holds weight. And then we want to then get on another Zoom call with our teacher. We can send them our digital journals. We can hand in our journals to the teacher next time we see them. And we can then present our designs to the class or to our teacher, virtually or once again in class. And focusing here all on those different prepositions. Does our boat hold weight? Does our passenger stay in? Are our passengers above, or did they go below or under? Using all the prepositions that we've introduced our students to. So going back into that prepositions topic area, I'm going to pull up that journal for you to take a look at here so you can get an idea of what your students will be completing throughout that process. So this is in presentation mode, it makes it a little bigger for us. But your students would be able to write down sentences, draw pictures, add images in this digital journal, or links when we get into the middle school or high school when they're doing some outside research. It allows them to document their process from start to finish. You'd have a digital version, or you'd have the, I'm going to go back in, or you'd have the printable one. Which would once again be downloadable and you'd be able to hand out to your students. As part of these as well, you as teachers will have access to full grading rubrics. These are very subjective and your students are going to be tested already on these different areas as they're included, or you're teaching them this already within your existing framework. So we're not trying to recreate the wheel with assessments that they're already going to be tested on within your existing framework. What we're trying to do is get your students to understand the connection from the core subject to the hands-on learning activities that they'll be completing within those challenges. So can the students explain why they're doing the challenge? Did they understand the problem? Were they able to walk through the steps of that engineering design cycle? Simply reviewing their journals will give you that information. Were they able to use feedback to improve their designs? You'll be able to see that as well as in their journals, their testing period. Were they able to take their designs and make them better based on testing? Did they work well with their team? And did they have an understanding of how this related to, in this case, prepositions, or in any one of those other K through 12 subjects, understanding the connection from that subject area to the challenge that was posed to them? Next, we're going to take a look quickly here at coding activities. These are 100% done on devices and can be student-led as well. And the goal with these coding projects is to introduce students to computer science and communicating back and forth with computers. So building some real skill sets there in computer programming, critical thinking areas, creativity as well. But the end product, the final game in this case that they design, once again, will tie into prepositions. So everything we're developing here, whether it's the engineering process, whether it's coding here in this example, or the next example I'm going to give you in 3D printing, everything that we're designing or developing with our students using Stemette will tie into those core subject standards. So as we go through these 3 sets of instructions as students, we're going to notice the first one is code. So we're going to learn how to code our game. Students' reading levels are different, K through 5. We completely understand that. So you're going to see text here provided to your students. You're going to see interactive screenshots showing your students step by step what they're doing. But the most important set of instructions here is that video audio component, walking your student through the details or the software that they're using here, very step by step for them. So each step 1 through 11 here, we're using the software called Scratch. I'm just going to pull it up so you can see it. For those of you unfamiliar with Scratch, incredibly popular K through 5, really K through 8 for developing skill sets in computer science. Very engaging, very easy to use, free to use, works on any device. So students would follow along with the instruction using Scratch, and they're going to be developing here a game in which they're giving prepositions for this little boy's room. So giving prepositions for these different objects, and they're learning how to program and type in those prepositions. So you're going to see the video audio here for step 2, text, screenshots. As we continue to go through each of these steps 1 through 11, the same set of instructions here for your students. So making it very simple for them to follow along. They could simply watch the videos for every single step here, and then they're done. They have a working game that they can then play and test, which is step 2 here, playing and testing your game. And then we want them to make changes to it. So this remix verbiage is directly from the CSTA Computer Science Framework K through 5, taking instructions and then making adjustments based on the information that you've learned. So the students would then have to make 3 changes to their game that we would have already taught them how to do. So they'd choose 5 sprites. Sprites are characters in game development terms, and they'd make them give a preposition. I'm going to pull up Tinkercad next, as Tinkercad is what we use for the 3D printing projects. We have that same set of instructions here as we did with coding. I'm going to pull up a 3D printing project. Now, I know what a lot of you are thinking, well, hey, I don't have a 3D printer. I'm not going to make one available to my students at home. Completely fine. These are just fun projects that the students can complete the first section and have then a digital library of projects that they're creating. And if we do get back into school, hopefully second semester, we can get back to traditional in class. But eventually down the road, your students will get back into the classroom, and it'd be awesome for them to have a variety of these projects ready to go for printers, or at the very least, just an activity here that's introducing them to something new, something that they can lead up their learning on their own, or just provide it out to them as an optional activity. So what we're doing here is we're designing now with Tinkercad. Tinkercad is very similar to Scratch. We're developing the foundations of geometrical design or 3D design here with Tinkercad. Still very introductory, very easy K through 8. And the students will have 3 sets of instructions for these as well. Create teaches them how to design using Tinkercad. You're going to see the video, interactive screenshots, and text. And in this lesson plan, all we're having them do is take the middle out of this cube. So in a few steps here, they're just removing the middle of this cube. This is a very low level project, kindergarten, first grade here. And then we will show them how to print that object if we can get back into the class. It's very simple to print from Tinkercad to a printer. And then we want to provide you as the teacher, as the educator here, with ways to bring the students digital designs, what they'd spent some time designing, and then eventually printing into the classroom for hands-on learning and connecting the dots here from 3D printing to using these hands-on manipulatives in your classroom for that connection to core subject standards. So this one would be very simple. You use that cube, you play a game of Simon Says now with your students, or have them group up, pass the cube around and play Simon Says together. Easy to connect the dots there to prepositions, and it's a really engaging activity and a fun way to bring a 3D printer into any subject. So I'm going to go back out and we're going to take a look at a middle school lesson plan here. We're going to go through the entire middle school topic area again, taking a look at all the different subjects like we did with elementary, and then we're going to dive into a specific example within Stemette Middle School. So Stemette Middle School, we're going to see agriculture, business, English, family, consumer science, health, art, math, science, and social studies. Start here. This topic guide that we're going to take a look at again will show us the different projects located in all of these different subject area. So I'm going to pull up the topic guide again, and we're going to take a look at a science lesson plan for today. So we saw this very similar outline for the elementary K-5 and how it tied into all of those different subjects. Same idea here with this middle school topic guide, showing you what the topics are as they're tied to those core and elective subjects, the lesson plans that are then connected or within that topic area. So for today's example, I'm just going to skip through these other subjects and move into science. We're going to take a look at a very relevant science lesson plan around infectious diseases and the spreading of an airborne disease today. And we're going to notice that the topic is infectious disease. We have a challenge called Don't Catch It, 3D printing project with a hand sanitizer bottle, and then a career focus of an epidemiologist. So by using that topic guide, your teachers will be able to identify those lessons very quickly. Then we're able to just go into science. We see all of those different areas within science, those topic areas. We're going to go into infectious disease. With an infectious disease, just like we saw with that prepositions example just a minute ago, we have a teacher's guide here designed to walk us as the teacher through the standards, the estimated time of completion, what our students will be doing within each of these lesson plans, and how we can facilitate this learning. So I'm just going to skip this teacher's guide, but it is available in every single one of these K through 12 for you to help you plan and to help you really get an understanding of these different projects. What I'm going to start with in this particular topic area is the challenge itself. So just like we saw at the elementary level, these challenges are designed to introduce the students to the core subject learning, introduce them to the engineering design process, and then we want them to, and bear with me while this loads for us, and then we want them to connect that to a design, engineering design project where they're going to use that design cycle to connect the dots. So this one's struggling to load here. Let me see if I can pull up another one. Let's actually go into high school and see if that one will cooperate with me. We'll go into science for high school. This is another great example here, one of my favorite ones. We're going to go into structural engineering. Oops, just kidding. We're going to go into biological engineering, which is my favorite one. And let's see if this one will bear with me today. There we go. So this one, just like we were going to take a look at there at the middle school level with infectious diseases, same idea. Introducing the students now, in this case, instead of infectious diseases, we just went into the high school version, which is tied to those high school core and elective subject standards. And this is now going to introduce us to biomimicry as a student, still very cross-curricular for us. Introducing us to STEM, introducing us to 21st century skills we're developing in this particular or this specific project here. And then an interactive lesson plan now. So biomimicry is simply learning how humans have taken designs in nature and then applied it to make inventions or to make a product better. So what we're going to be learning about in this particular example through interactive videos and animations, clickable links, is how humans have taken some of these designs in nature. So for example, the burdock burrs, this is how we created Velcro. We took this design we found in nature and then we created Velcro. So very fun and interactive projects here. Another one is the kingfisher's beak here. We use that to create the bullet train. So connections from nature to human inventions or creations. What we're then going to do is using that same 6-step process and our student journals that we took a look at, both available digitally or to be downloaded, printed, and handed out to our students. We're going through this 6-step process once again, providing our students with that scenario in which they're going to be using their understanding of biomimicry to solve a problem. In this case, they're actually going to be doing some research on their own, finding a design in nature, and creating a product around that organism that they found out there in nature. So by using the same 6-step process, we're giving them those guiding questions and things to think about here as they navigate through this design cycle. But once again, we're not giving them the actual solution. They are leading their creations, and we allow for a lot of flexibility here in their learning. And then they're going to, at the end, present their designs to the class, and then the teacher will have a very similar grading rubric, and we end these lesson plans with discussion points or discussion topics that you as a teacher could either provide out as an additional part of this as an assignment, have your students write up a paper based on these 4 discussion topics, or better yet, get them in a collaborative Zoom call or meeting, and let's go through this as a class. So as a teacher, we can get input from our students once they've completed this challenge. The goal of these discussion topics is just to regroup and get everybody back focused on what we were just learning prior to that challenge that we just accomplished. We would then end these with a 3D printing project, which we'll take a look at in a second. Readings, so articles, different websites we send our students out to that further their learning or connect them to potential articles related to what they learned about, and then focus here on what the career would look like or what post-secondary opportunities would look like as compared to what they did in the challenge itself. So career focus at the high school, middle school level, additional readings, and then of course that 3D printing connection. So we'll take a look now at that 3D printing connection here. We're still using Tinkercad. These are still very simple projects, not meant to take your students more than an hour to complete. This one does get a little bit more complex than that elementary lesson plan we looked at. This is a high school version of it. And now we're designing a self-watering planter, and the connection here is going to be obvious in a second on how this relates to biomimicry. But the students would still follow along with these easy to follow instructions. This one does get quite a bit more complex, however, than the first example that we saw. And then we would get them to their final design. They'd be able to print it if we had that printer available. This quick video shows them how to get this to any 3D printer. And then of course, the connection here to how we're taking the designs found by the I'm gonna mispronounce this one, but the bromeliad plant family, and how this plant has this self-watering, the roots of this plant are able to funnel water through as it's needed. So that's the design we just copied here. The water gets stuck within that plant, and the plant will funnel that water down into its roots whenever it's thirsty. Once again, we have those challenge rubrics here for you within these, and those student journals that we can hand out to them or provide to them digitally, and they're able to take notes and document their steps here throughout the process. So Stemette, as we saw, is available for every subject, every grade level, K through 12, designed to help those teachers bring in a virtual or even unplugged. We saw a lot of these can be done within the home without a lot of materials needed to complete these designs, without even technology being required for a majority of these lesson plans. So whether your students have access to technology every day or there's limited availability, these lesson plans are there to support your staff and to help them bring in some unique and engaging lesson plans into what they're currently teaching. So they're not having to learn something new. They're already familiar with these subject areas, these topic areas that we're using. We're just providing them with new lesson plans that allow them to facilitate learning rather than have to lead learning. And if students are able to lead learning in a digital learning environment, we're all going to be a little bit more successful and provide our teachers with a little bit more prep time and planning time for those hard to teach areas in which they would have to be leading and providing support to students. So at this point, Corey, I'm going to hand it back over to you to see if we get to any questions here on either the platform itself or the Stemette series.
All right, Tyler, thank you so much. That was so informative. I want to just point out before we open it up to questions, some of the things Tyler showed, for example, with the prepositions lesson, you may have noticed all the supplies were things like aluminum foil and paper. These are all things that your students will have at home. So nothing requires you to send home any specific products that the kids would need to use. They should be able to find it at home or make adaptations, which is another part of that engineering challenge. Also, he mentioned the digital documents, but I don't think he mentioned their Google Docs. So you can very easily just share that out in your learning management system, whether it be Google Classroom or Schoology, whatever you're using. These documents are really easy to share out to the students so that they can interact with them and complete the materials that way. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to come off of mute or type them in the chat, and we'll see what we get. How is the product licensed? Is it by the school, the district, the teacher, or the student?
Great question. So the product is licensed by the school, and what you would receive access to is the program that you selected, access to this learning management platform that we briefly introduced today, as well as training, support, and professional development for your staff, especially during this time of distance learning. Getting your staff comfortable with not only using those lesson plans, but how to teach them in a distance learning environment comes with the training that we provide. So it's very helpful for your staff that is maybe a little bit nervous or needs some additional lesson plans that they are struggling to find out there. All of that would be then included as a school license, good for all teachers within that school.
All right, let's see if we get any more questions. Oh, is it annual or is it a one-time fee?
It is an annual subscription.
Okay. That was the same person asked that. I don't know if it was there and I didn't notice it the first time. So some other really cool things while we're waiting to see if more questions show up. As Tyler showed you with Tinkercad, if you don't have access to those 3D printers right now because your students are working remote, there are other ways that they can actually use those 3D designs. And we can talk about that in terms of professional development, the different programs available. For example, if you have Google Expedition kits and you were sending those headsets home, the kids could actually see their designs in augmented reality. So they would be able to like look around at it, or you also have the Merge Cube is another way to see those 3D designs. So they don't necessarily have to print it to explore the final product. So those are just some other things to consider. If you are going with the hybrid model, it's something to give those kids some excitement when they come back to the classroom. They could email the files to the teachers, and then the teachers can print them so that when the students do come in that 1 day a week or that 2 days a week, they could get their projects and see what their final product looks like. Is this integrated with other platforms such as Google Classroom?
Yes, a great question there. So as Corey mentioned, a lot of these, especially in the Stemette series, which we focused on today, looking at those K through 12 projects, a lot of those journals, all of those journals rather, are compatible with Google Classroom, could simply be integrated directly into Google Classroom, releasing that or communicating back and forth easily with Google Classroom. The student-facing lesson plans are going to be housed within this Educate platform. Those are not able to be integrated into Classroom, but all assignments, teachers' guides, and teaching resources, those could be directly connected to Google Classroom very easily.
Now, Tyler, when you just mentioned that, for the schools that are using something like ClassLink or a single sign-on, does STEMFuse interact with any of those very well, or would students need individual logins for the STEMFuse platform?
Yeah, so at this time, single sign-on is in development, not available yet. I can tell you that we're working on single sign-on directly with Google Classroom. So Google single sign-on will be available. We're also in communication with Clever, which is another popular single sign-on company that houses a lot of different educational apps. But at this time, students will need their own logins, and we can discuss that process and how easy it actually is once we get to that point with the school. But it's really quite simpler than you're thinking, and we have ways around that and ways to help even those younger students get in easily.
Okay. Well, I'm going to just talk a little bit more about what Visual Sound offers in terms of professional development, and we'll see if any more questions pop up. So Visual Sound, we have a lot of different professional development opportunities we can provide you. So as Tyler mentioned, if you purchase STEMFuse, it comes with their professional development, but you're not going to be alone. If you purchase it, Visual Sound is here to also support you, so you'll have us as another outlet to get some assistance if your teachers need it. We also offer trainings in Google, Microsoft, Smart Learning Suite, all the different platforms that your teachers are using. We can provide that professional development, so that way we can assist your staff. And if you are interested in learning more about the professional development, please reach out to your account managers. We offer webinar virtual trainings. We offer in-person trainings, both half day and full day. So whatever your school is interested in, we can help you to customize that to best fit your needs. All right, Tyler, I don't see any more questions coming in. Do you have contact information if they have more questions, or should they reach out directly to us here at Visual Sound?
Corey, let's have them reach out directly to you guys to facilitate any review accounts, any additional or more in-depth training on particular programs that you're looking for. We'd be happy to set up, but please contact Corey and the group over there at Visual Sound for that, and then they will connect us together here and we'll get you what you need as soon as you need it.
Okay, then I am going to just take back the screen sharing so I can put our contact information there. So that way, if they do like to get in touch with us, they are more than welcome to. Tyler, thank you again for joining us today. It was a wonderful introduction to STEMFuse, and I even learned some new things today. So it was a great experience. If anyone does have questions after we hang up today, don't hesitate to reach out. We are here to support you, and we wish you all a lot of luck with this upcoming school year.